advised, this is a free speech zone.
Welcome back, Ron, for the number 2 podcast of our little podcast here, starting from humble beginnings. Now we're kind of stepping our game up a little bit here. Got some more equipment in here.
Now we have a panel of drape.
We got a panel of blue drape, not even black drape.
Presidential. First of all, I just want to say I went by Whole Foods on the way here. This is a side issue to get my morning caffeine, and just thank God for yoga pants. I mean, really. Have you ever walked around the fucking Whole Foods up here up the street? Good Lord.
Side note.
It's like going to Target on Mother's Day. Jesus Christ.
All right. Anyways, we'll get back on track here. So for today's topic, we're going to kind of dive into climate change, some geoengineering, and some of the research we've been doing. You know, we're not going to give you guys everything on this podcast. This is kind of just to get get the ball rolling. Get the ball rolling in your research. These are just some couple of things that are just kind of stick out to us.
Well, yeah. The first point I want to make is that, say in any jury trial, if there's any reasonable doubt, you can't convict. So, to just follow one investigation of climate change and just say it's CO2 over and over again, there's reasonable doubt that it is not CO2 that drives the climate. So that's my first thought. The first thing we want to look at, and you got your thing recording.
Yeah, it's rolling.
So the first thing we want to look at is CO2 Earth, and this is the authority on CO2 levels in the atmosphere. And if you scroll down a little bit, so you get this thing here, and it says, hey, it's 2016, it was, 406.81, a year later, it got 2 more points. A year later, 2 more points.
So it is going up.
It is going up. I have no doubt that CO2 rises and falls in the atmosphere. That's not the issue. The issue is if it drives all climate, and I don't think that it does. First of all, these numbers mean 400 parts per million for those of you that don't know. And 400 parts per million is barely measurable. So how could something so minute actually drive the climate? That's my point. Second point I have is that the oceans absorb and release CO2. And we have no control over that. And it's the biggest emitter of CO2.
Yeah, I did see something. I did see something about that, but the other side says, the oceans are emitting this much CO2, and then, the atmosphere is pumping that back down to Earth at the same rate. So when you add all in what us humans have contributed, that's what they're saying. That's what's pushing it over the edge. The Earth has its checks and balances.
Okay. I could buy into that.
You know what I'm saying? But I think it was, something of like 750 million for the ocean compared to like 40 million for humanity.
Right. I think that's somewhere in this. As well.
But I did hear, termites cause more CO2 emissions than humans.
Yeah.
Cows obviously are a big one, but that can also be linked back to humans because the more we grow, the more food we need, the more food we have to, raise.
Correct. And methane is, sounds funny, but cow farts, methane, is even a bigger greenhouse gas. It's,
What about all like the palm oil? You've heard about that going on right now, right?
What's going on with palm oil nowadays?
I think Indonesia is like the biggest contributor of palm oil, and they've literally trashed all of their jungles.
Oh, okay.
Just to plant palm oil, but they do slash and burn technique.
Right.
So they're just burning their entire jungle down. And this was one of the biggest jungles left in the world.
Okay.
So you're still thinking we don't really have any. You're still saying what we're doing is still a small, minute contributor.
I'm saying that, of course, it matters how much CO2 is in the air. If there's too much CO2 in the air, then we'll die.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that. I'm saying it doesn't drive climate. It doesn't drive heat. There's more evidence that it's solar activity that does it. And you can go on and look up, solar cycles. And you find a lot of articles saying, the sun, does the sun drive the climate? No, it doesn't. Okay, so it doesn't have anything to do with how much the Earth heats up, is what they're saying. Yet, in years that there are more sunspots, coronal ejection, that year is hotter. When there's less, that year is colder.
Yeah.
Or cooler.
And I think we've kind of experienced that this year at least in Phoenix, I feel, because, we finally had like a true triple digit day, this week. But leading up to it wasn't really getting past, where we're normally at. Like, I feel like June was still felt like spring almost.
Right. It wasn't.
But compared to, past years, I feel like it was a lot hotter then.
And by the way, I wanted to get this out of the way too. I'm not what is known as a climate denier. I don't deny that there are changes going on in the earth. I just don't think it's cars doing it. That being said, I want clean air. I don't want them to dump fucking oil in the oceans. I have kids. I want their planet to be a clean place to grow up. So I'm not one of these people that says, oh, there's nothing at all going on, and, my point is you don't have to propagandize the entire world, because this is a global thing. There's a carbon tax now, and, by the way, what we're doing is we're giving control of our industry to the UN, is literally what we're doing. So every time there's a hurricane or a forest fire or a wildfire, whatever, they just keep bringing up man-made global warming, man-made climate change over and over again to make you feel guilty. And then at some point, the UN can go, okay, you don't produce tires anymore. China produces tires. You can't. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me raise this question though. If they want to scare you into, climate, we're causing climate change and to lower your carbon footprint, wouldn't they want the exact opposite for profit reasons though? Like, why would they want you to drive less, use less, when we all know we're profit driven?
Because they want control.
You get what I'm saying? Like, why?
I do, but that's what the ultimate destination of this is deindustrialization of the United States, and they would rather, pump all of the money out of the United States into banks. Then they have control over us. They have total control. You can't own a car. You have to live in a city. Can't have private property. That's the end goal of this. So that's why I say that they are lying and making you feel guilty so that you think it's your idea.
It's like Inception or something.
I want to, I want the planet to be cooler. So I'm going to give up my car.
Well, I also heard that like this kind of all started with Al Gore too, and
Right.
his Inconvenient Truth documentary.
Inconvenient Truth. Well, but
And this
according
is
to Al
really
Gore,
just a big scam. Like,
according to him, by now we should, half of California should be gone. What did he say, by 2012 or something?
Yeah, I mean,
So you got some
I just want to show you this
interesting graphs
this
there.
graph real quick. Actually, let me backtrack just a second, just to kind of retouch on your sunspots type thing.
Yes.
Right here in this article you sent me, it says every 12 years or so, overall sunspot activity doubles. So that has something we have no control over, is what the sun's doing. But I also think the sun does run in cycles just like the Earth does. And the Earth does roll in cycles. You know, you're like, oh, it's been so much hotter. But as you can see from this graph, like towards this top part, that's pretty much where we're at right now. Okay.
Right.
So you could see it's moving up and down, up and down, up and down. It's never a straight line. So the Earth is always changing.
Right. Those little up and down, back and forth things are what, like every 15 years or so, something like that, or not even. It's because that's what 11,000 years ago that this.
So yeah, you're seeing this big one right here. This happened 11,000 years ago, and this kind
of. So where were the cars then that were
exactly driving? What happened here? 10,000 years ago. That's not maybe a meteor hit or something, but something huge happened here. And people go back to the Bible and say that could be the Great Flood. Which, I mean, it might as well could be. Look at the world's oceans, and how much more water they had in them during that same time period.
So explain this this part right here.
So this is water melting in in the icebergs. They can date this by
ice core.
Yeah, exactly. Drilling the ice core and figuring out what happened that long ago. So this is saying 10,000 years ago, there's a catastrophic event that, pretty much put us all underwater.
Right.
This is what this is pretty much what they're threatening of us. That's going to happen if we don't change. I think in Inconvenient Truth, he projected it in 2014 we'd be all underwater. Well, now what?
So it's 2018.
Yeah, exactly. So I always found that very interesting. That something spiked 10,000 years ago, but according to our historians, no one was around then, which I think is bullshit. But I think we've been on this planet a lot longer and being in cycles that, everyone's doing great, something bad happens and wipes us out, and now we're back in the Stone Age and we have to restart again. I think it's just a cycle, and we've been here, they're finding, cave drawings that are 25,000 years old, like.
Right. I could buy into that.
Yeah.
I mean, what makes you think that we haven't all been here before?
Yeah. Kind of a little tangent there, but
yeah.
It's just always interesting to me.
All right, so you want to
So let's backtrack. So they say one of my biggest things is, you looked up in the sky when you're, littler, and the sky was a lot more blue, right? It was a lot more vivid, right? Now you look up and it's kind of like a dull version of, of sky blue. Remember the crayon sky blue, how vivid that was? Mm-hmm. And now it's almost just crayon, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you find that crayon, it does not look like the sky anymore. And I think this is due to geoengineering. And they've been doing this for a while, isn't that right? And didn't they do it in Vietnam? And
they did cloud seeding in Vietnam to try to make things more miserable for the Vietnamese, because they knew they had tunnels and didn't have the type of facilities that the U.S. troops had. So their bonehead logic was, oh, let's drown them out. Well, you see how good that works.
Yeah, they made it rain, and so their vehicles were getting stuck, and it's just miserable in the rain. If you
but
can imagine.
That's an admitted thing.
Yeah, it's on record that they did it. And I'm flabbergasted that people don't think that they are doing something to the sky, or at least trying to control the weather or whatnot. And people are just sheeps, They just, oh, that's a contrail. What are you talking about, chemtrail? You're conspiracists. Right. My brother's always like, you're seriously stupid if you think that they're spraying the air. And I'm like, Dude, there's proof. Like they don't call it chemtrailing; they call it geoengineering.
I remember that employee party where I walked over to your table and you introduced your parents to me, and you said he's a conspiracy guy too, and your dad looked at me like this.
Oh, they're more open to it than my brother is, but
maybe it was just a little psychological.
Let me show you a clip real quick.
Okay.
This is in Dubai. They make it rain in Dubai every week because it's so dry there for it being
they
a
make
complete
it rain,
desert. Yeah,
and they admit it.
And they admit it. This guy's going to tell you that they try to make it 10 to 30% rain more. Like, so let me play this for you.
For example, only 40
so
to
saying it only
50%
rains
of its rain that processed in the cloud that comes as rainfall. So by these operations, we try to increase this amount by, for example, from 15 to 30%.
So how does it work? It starts here, inside the National Center of Meteorology, where a team is constantly monitoring forecasts, looking for potential clouds to seed. The operations only work with cumulus clouds, which are vertical in shape.
Research 5 operation, can you read me?
Once they spot a cloud, they radio the pilots, who then take to the air armed with hydroscopic flares filled with a mixture of potassium chloride, sodium chloride, magnesium, and other materials. It's essentially salt. When the plane reaches the right clouds, the pilots release the flares.
These salts basically attracts the moisture and try to make it condense. So these particles becomes nuclei of condensation, and then when these droplets condense, and then they hit each other, and then they form a bigger droplet that the air cannot.
I'll stop there. So what he's pretty much saying is his job is to go out and find clouds to seed. Like, that's literally what he's saying. And what they do is put salt into the air. But I know that there's like some silver in there and aluminum.
Which they deny.
Yeah, which they deny. But what it does is
America denies.
It's not making clouds. It's making cloud. He's saying the cloud, 50% of the rain in the cloud will drop. What they're trying to do is increase that, so that cloud is more productive for rain.
Okay.
So you can see it right here, like, they're doing it. I don't understand why people think, like, no, they can't. Like,
well, that's what they do. They demonize people who question and say, what's going on there, and trying to do an investigation. They demonize that while acknowledging that they do it at the same time.
All right, let me show you this. So this kind of shows you. So yeah, I'm not going to say every contrail is a chemtrail. You'll really notice it because you'll see, an airplane go by, and it has a very small tail that disappears within 30 seconds, right?
Right.
With these chemtrails, they last all day and they expand, and by the end of the day, they turn into a separate cloud. Like, so here's just kind of like a side-by-side real quick. Look at that. Like, just compare those two.
That's awesome.
Like, it's ridiculous. Like,
now, are those planes, were they at the same altitude?
So maybe they're at different altitudes, right?
But that one looks pretty tiny.
Let me turn this down here a little bit.
Supposedly, you only get a chemtrail at a certain altitude.
Yeah, which I think is it's so selective, because you'll go outside one day and there'll be nothing. It'll be clear blue, no clouds, and there's nothing. And then you go the next day and there's some clouds, and now it looks like a checkerboard up in the sky. Like,
right.
if this was due to altitude and the temperature or whatever, you would see it every day. Like, there wouldn't just be days where you don't see anything.
Well, here's the thing.
Just see how it expands. See, this one's just disappearing. Even if they were at different altitudes, this one would still be like that, though, if they were, the chemtrail. But see how it just disappears right away? Like, it's crazy.
Years ago, I flew back to Texas with Gretchen. This is before we had Brian. And I was on a flight, and a plane crossed in front of us. It wasn't a near miss or anything.
Yeah, but you could see the plane in the window.
And it was laying down a chemtrail. Now, I have no idea if my plane was doing the same thing because I'm inside the plane. However, when you're when you're looking up at them, they're white. When you're in the air and you see it being laid down, they're brown. It was literally a brown
I think I've seen one of
dual.
those.
And I was like, I didn't have my camera.
Yeah, it's literally spraying. Like it's not just coming off the wings.
It's just condensation, because condensation isn't brown.
Yeah.
What do we? So, what else?
So they're going yeah, they're doing that up in the, skies in the airplanes, right?
Okay. Show this little.
So I'm gonna show you a clip where they're actually making clouds on the ground level. Like this is coming from NASA on Top Gear. This guy's talking about it. Some people.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it kind of looks like they're testing a jet engine because you could see fire and whatnot inside of it, but then. Like the guy will tell you, like that cloud can produce rain. So if that was just emissions from a huge space shuttle, like it wouldn't rain.
It would rain after the space shuttle is launched.
Well, I'm just saying the cloud that this thing produces. But here, take a look here.
Wow.
So do you see what I'm saying? Like it could look like they're testing an engine, but
I love this guy from Top Gear.
If you can't hear what I'm saying, I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly
like look at that.
And as it turns
And this could just be out in the suburbs somewhere, and no one's gonna know. Look at that thing. Because even if
it looks like a time lapse, but it's really going out that fast.
No, it is. Now look at it. It is just floating up there.
It's just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain.
See? That's a cloud that's now floating in the atmosphere just from this. Now, I'm sure this isn't that. Well, maybe it is.
So they could do this here in the desert and make it rain here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I showed you they do it in Dubai. So a lot of time too, what I think they're doing when they're spraying the clouds is there's a storm system coming in, and they either try to block it out from the city or try to trap it into the city. So they're doing multiple things. It's not just one thing. Now we can be like that's our
You think this is a side issue on the conspiracy corner there, but you think they can steer storms? I've heard they can.
I think so.
So. What if they wanted to rebuild an area like
maybe
Louisiana, maybe?
Yeah, maybe they're like doing this testing here. Maybe it's all just a test to see if we can geoengineer Mars or something.
Make the property values go down and then rebuild and then put casinos and stuff.
I don't know about that. That's pretty. They're just trying to take over the land or something.
I'm reaching. Okay, so that's a good one. So you want to do these next two where they talk about how we need. So this is my point. They will tell you that it's CO2 and that it's cars that are driving the climate, coal-fired power plants. We need to cut down our emissions. It's not the sun. Yet they have a program where they disperse particulates in the air to reflect sunlight.
And that's kind of where I was going.
That it's to cool the planet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that guy's saying it's only salt in the air, right? Well, maybe that's just their solution of getting rain to where over here they're trying to use it for blocking the sun, like you said, and that's where the aluminum and silver come into play because that's what actually reflects it.
Right.
When they spray it. So we're all saying, it's most likely, the sun cycle and the earth cycle, and people will be like, oh, you're, climate change deniers or whatever. I'm like, no, we're just, realist.
And by the way, the term denier, that's a, I study propaganda as well. That's a little trick that they do, because when you hear the word denier, what do you automatically think of?
It's either yes or no. Like there's
I mean, in history, you think people think Holocaust denier. So it's a little mind trick that they do, where they go, "You're a climate denier," And in the back of people's mind, they're going, what a fucking Nazi, man.
Yeah, it's associated with something bad.
Exactly. Go ahead.
So yeah, we'll show you a clip here that kind of just talks about why sunlight is
offsetting
really
the
doing
temperature
this.
changes and other climate changes that come from the accumulation of carbon dioxide. This is not a substitute for cutting emissions. If we want a stable climate, in the end, we must bring emissions to zero. But it is a powerful supplement. It could reduce the risks of climate change in ways that we cannot reduce them by simply cutting emissions.
So if you reflect sunlight from the planet, it'll cool the planet.
Extremes that cause real human suffering.
Never thought of that
Deaths
one.
from heat waves.
But
losses
that could
of crops
also
that will cause real damage in the poorest parts of the world. It reduces the extreme precipitation events. These are the big storms that are some of the most dangerous things about climate change.
All right, so they're also trying to do solar change as well.
Well, see, that to me, that just means that they know that the sun is driving the climate, and it's not like they live on the same planet we do. They're trying to remedy that, but at the same time, they have to say that it's CO2 so they can stick with their
narrative. So as they try to reflect the sunlight, that could also harm us by eventually doing what we're trying not to do. It could heat up the atmosphere with all the solar reflections and
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, it's
panels.
like those the solar farms that they have in California, the giant mirrored solar panels. They literally cook birds mid-flight. So if birds fly over that thing, they're toast. They've killed thousands of birds with those things. So that's just I see you're trying to get electricity from the sun. I like that. I'm a solar guy. But you're heating up the atmosphere again. Because you're injecting all of this heat into the ionosphere. Does that make sense? I mean...
So how do we then... I know you were saying before we started recording, other alternate ways to create energy is windmills, but, it's still not off of fossil fuels. Like, you need coal to make steel, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, and some of those windmills will never create enough electricity to be past what they've already used in electricity to make them.
To make it, yeah.
So in other words, it's a virtue signaling thing where you go, oh yes, look, we're conscious of the environment, but you just built something that put out more emissions to build it than it'll ever make up in electricity. I think the really successful ones just break even or just...
So what would you suggest the cleanest way of gathering energy without just, affecting climate or, fossil fuels and stuff like that?
I do like solar, but maybe
like a new
if you wanted to do
absorbent instead of reflective, like glass or something.
No, I would say if it was a little bit more dispersed, maybe. Like if you wanted to put solar panels on your house, you could do that, and it wouldn't be in such a centralized. I guess if everybody did it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm going. If everyone would be a giant this exactly
reflection, but my answer would be cut regulations on people, and then let the free market take off. So make it competitive to build solar panels and solar systems and things like that. And
well, I think Tesla's kind of on the right track with that, right?
Huh?
Like Tesla, all the new Tesla shingle. You seen those yet?
No.
So Tesla's making solar panels, but they just look like roofing tiles.
Okay.
And I also saw them developing see-through solar panels, so you can then outfit all your windows in solar panel, office buildings downtown, all that window and glass.
Awesome.
Because that's also even if it's just glass too, that's still producing heat.
Right.
So
but probably not as much as a mirror.
Well, no, but I'm sure when you have 1,500 windows in the building, it's got to be doing something.
Yeah, and
but that's kind of just off the point.
Yeah, I just don't like the fact that, you can't just put solar panels on your house. You have to go through the electric company so that you can be tied into their grid. They say that it's so that you can sell electricity back to them, but let's say, and they make you jump through a bunch of hoops to do that, by the way, because me and Gretchen were going to do it. They make it really hard. But let's say that there were solar panels on every person's roof. Let's go there, in every business. We're all making our own electricity. What do we need the electric company for? All we need is their infrastructure. So they have no interest in doing that. They would rather you keep buying electricity from them than for you to be selling it back to them. There's a guy, this is another thing I told you about, there's these guys, I wish I could give them a plug, their YouTube channel, but I don't remember the name of the video, but they just took a white trailer, like a landscaping truck would pull, and they just put solar panels on it. And just drive it out in the fucking desert, and you got enough electricity to power a whole RV without, generating emissions. If you're,
Did you hear that?
Want to put it that way.
If you were to take Australia and just put solar panels across the whole country, it'd be enough to run the Earth.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Indefinitely?
It might have been like 100 years or something, but imagine the maintenance on that, though. Like,
I don't think the Australians would appreciate that, but...
Well, I mean, yeah, but...
I know, it's just...
Damn kangaroos.
All right, so there was another video there that had a shorter clip where...
Oh, do you want to talk about this real quick?
The TED Talk? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, there's a guy, what's his name? I forget his name, it's there somewhere. He worked for NASA. I don't know if he still works for NASA.
Gavin Schmidt.
Adam Schmidt was cooking the books.
Yeah,
and satellite data of temperature does not match what he was putting out, and this guy supposedly is the authority on, the information. You're supposed to trust NASA.
So, and this kind of foolery doesn't just happen here. Like, people do this with literally everything. They just fudge the numbers to go with their narrative. This right here is showing you NASA's trend of what are they showing here? Like
it's temperature,
right? So this is NASA's, and this is this guy's. He's the one in charge of getting the information from satellite reads. But you could see that he's kind of making it leveled off, where NASA's raising it. But
what is this CO2? Yeah, it's temperature.
Yeah. But
okay.
So which one do you believe? Here's a company that's responsible for providing data, so we have something to check NASA with, and you could see right here it's completely off. Like, you could kind of tell you tried to match it a little bit, but then made it more.
You just kind of tilted it up.
Yeah, he just rotated it. It's pretty much what he did. But that's just, this kind of just goes back to, don't believe everything you read. Don't be a sheep. Don't do just a little bit of research, and you'll see, like, this stuff is happening. We're, like we've been saying, we're not really responsible for the climate change.
Right. I think if nobody was here on this planet, it would still be 118 degrees outside.
Yeah, regardless.
In the summertime.
Yeah. So some people will be like, well, we're actually, it's not necessarily just temperatures or CO2. It's us affecting weather systems, and there's more hurricanes, more violent tornadoes, and stuff like that. Do you think that has a contributing factor?
What, CO2? CO2
no,
meaning
whatever we're doing to increase global warming or climate.
We just started
change.
out by showing how they can make it rain, for Christ's sakes. Maybe we are unknowing the public not knowing about it, maybe we are manipulating the weather, you know? All right, so another issue I wanted to talk about is that people just say if we could just, you know, snap our fingers and make every car electric, that would be better. But it would not. If you're using more electricity, you're using more emissions, because what a lot of people don't realize is we get a lot of our electricity from coal-fired power plants. The environmentalists don't like nuclear, which is pretty... Overall, it's really safe, but what are you going to do with the waste?
With the waste, yeah.
So I totally understand that, but if they don't want nuclear and they don't want emissions from coal-fired power plants, if they shut them all down right now, within a month, people would say, turn it the fuck back on, please. Please. Because you would have electricity rationing, traffic lights wouldn't work, hospitals would be running on generators. Anybody that's lived through a hurricane will tell you, you want the electricity, trust me. It's, you know.
Yeah, they're experiencing that in Puerto Rico right now.
So if you can't use nuclear, and you can't use coal, and you can't use natural gas, and we're going just on windmill power and solar panels, currently, that's not enough to produce enough electricity to have a modern society.
Don't you think at some point, though, we probably need to go that way?
At some point we do. Like I said, I don't want the skies polluted. I want, you know.
Yeah, I feel like we probably just need better technology to make that happen. Right now, they kind of just stuck with the first, you know, all right, electric cars. Now everyone just put all your money into electric cars and they'll fix everything. Like, we need to be developing alternative ways to, which I'm sure they are, but they're not, you know, advertising that. You know, they want you to buy the new Prius, but what else can you do? You know.
Right. Yeah, like I said, if they just turned them all off tomorrow, people would be killed. People would die. People, you know, there may be even rioting.
Yeah, it's used to make all your products too. It's not even just, you know, cars or, you know, your house or whatever. You know, it's used, petroleum's used in a lot of things.
Yeah, plastics and household items and things like that. So, and that's a whole other road that we can go down later with oil. A lot of people don't realize how oil is
actually, we could talk about that a little bit here. We got some time.
Produced and whatnot, but here's the thing. If there's oil under our feet, a lot of people think, oh, you just pull the oil out of the ground and you make it into gas and you use it. No, that's not how it works. Because of OPEC, that oil has to go on the world market and then we got to bid to get it back. So, to be a real environmentalist, you'd say, our oil stays with us. That way, you know, we get to decide how it's used. Right?
We consume more than we produce, though.
Oh, yeah.
We're the leading
we
consumer.
Do, and that's why they have that, so that we're sharing in the economy with the rest of the world. And we do use a lot more than everybody else. I will admit that.
I also read, though, that they're not going to run out of oil anytime soon, and it's just a front to keep prices, you know, jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, everyone's like, oh, we're, you know, I think, what is it, like they say 2050 will run out or something like that. I've heard that, you know, I think there's at least 5 years, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like 5 or 10 years worth of oil just stockpiled in Texas.
I don't know that that's true or not, but I would not doubt it.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Yeah, and when I say I hear that, it doesn't, you know, necessarily, it just means, you know, I like to look at different theories and subject, you know, I don't like to just stick to the narrative that someone tells me, you know.
So, another issue I wanted to talk about is carbon taxes. And if you really study how all of that works, it's really convoluted. So what they do is they put a carbon tax on corporations, but they can trade carbon credits.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Carbon credits?
Yeah.
That sounds like some idiocracy thing.
Right.
Like
yeah.
Like V-Bucks for Fortnite or something.
So if you have an oil company and you also have like a food company, you can produce all the oil you want and then just trade off the carbon credits that you didn't use in your food company.
How would they track that though?
To even it. I think it's all bullshit. I think they're just bullshitting us.
Your carbon footprint, like.
Oh, and by the way, it's in the works right now for each and every citizen is going to have a tax soon. They estimated currently it would be about $200 a year that you're going to have to shell out
for just your everyday living.
Depending on what neighborhood you live in, if you live in an apartment, it'd be less. But they're going to make everybody. And listen, once these things are implemented, there's no turning back. They will cause a war over this. If you try to say no, we're not. If America told the UN, "Fuck you," we're not doing this carbon tax thing anymore. It's all bullshit.
Well, they kind of did that.
The next day, we would be in a world war. They would make it happen.
I don't know if that would happen.
A lot of fucking money, man. That's a lot.
Well, they
of money.
tried to get everyone in the UN, on to, down to bring back their carbon uses, and the United States said no.
Yeah.
And nothing. We got ridiculed from other countries, but other than that.
Are you talking about the Paris Agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was
so
Trump.
we kind of did something like that, and nothing really happened. But kind of go on a side tangent here, like the fact that, you're talking about getting more and more taxed and how we would have an uprise. I don't know necessarily that would happen. I mean, if you go back to colonial times, they weren't getting taxed, and now all of a sudden they had the 2% tax they were trying to implement on them, and they started a war over 2%. Mm-hmm. We get taxed 30 to 40% now, and everyone's like, okay, that's fine. That's, got to do my part to build the roads or whatever, but, it's never going where you want it to go. But so I don't think if they were to add another $200 a year, anyone would really throw a fit, because they would spin it in such a way that this is good for you, good for the environment. It makes you, watch how much you're using, stuff like that. So I think they would spin it in a way where everyone would not bat an eyelash about it.
I could see that happening. Everybody's pretty.
They're dead set on their ways. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think we need serious tax reforms, but it's only going to benefit the government, really. And I was kind of watching that 1% guy that you were telling me about. He was on.
Oh yeah,
he was on,
Peter Schiff.
Yeah, he was on Rogan a couple days ago.
He was on Rogan. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he makes a lot of sense on a lot. I don't agree with everything he says, because you can't agree with.
Yeah, you can't.
Says, but he makes a lot of good points.
But yeah, we need to be angry at the government, not the rich people. But that's totally different conversation. But.
Right. So all of this, to me, leads to one place, and that is a global control over America, instead of us manifesting our own destiny. And what their plan is, their ultimate plan is, because they have, when I say they, I'm talking about basically the Federal Reserve Bank. They rule America. They control our government.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
They're a privately owned entity. Everybody can look this up. It's not a federal institution. They print our money and they lend it to the government at interest. That's where you get the national debt from.
Yeah, I think we'll do a show about that. We'll do a show about
I gotta show you
the Federal Reserve. And
did I email you that national debt time clock? That has all
I've seen it before. It's pretty.
Holy
it's pretty
shit!
alarming.
It jumps the national debt jumps $100,000 every 8 seconds.
Well, you see that Trump is building his brand new Air Force One.
Is he?
It's going to cost us $3.6 billion.
Damn. Well,
But anyways, well, that's another
the fucking
conversation.
Air Force One plane has been around since like the 80s or some shit. It's
right.
fucking.
But we'll make that a different show.
So
let's kind of get some closing remarks here. I think our time's kind of coming up
all
here.
right, you want to go first?
Yeah, I just really want to get through to people that there are chemtrails. You can go, please just go out there. Maybe you're having a pool day. You can track them, like, and they will turn into like clouds. Like it's crazy that people don't think that they're doing this. I showed you on this episode. You know, there's people's jobs is to find clouds and to seed them. You know, they're making it rain. They're controlling storm patterns, and you know, whether that is for evil purposes or, you know, doing good, could still be up in the air. You know, the conspiracy part of it is they're, you know, poisoning us with aluminum in our water and whatnot. It's, you know, it's all rainfall. I don't necessarily know if that's what's going on, but they are trying to change our climate. And I think that the Earth is just in its certain cycle right now, and I don't think it's anything to worry about, honestly.
Right. It's. I believe that the planet goes through cycles. You showed that graph earlier. When I tell you what, if it was 11,000 years ago, before that stabilization happened, people would. You're talking 13, 14, 15 degree jumps,
swings
back and forth in the temperature, in the overall temperature of the planet. You don't want to be in an ice age. That's a killer.
Yeah, I think we'll end up doing more harm to ourselves trying to do this. If we just let the Earth do its own thing. But, you know, people are going to say the more the population builds, and you've seen those time lapses where it shows the population growth of the Earth from, you know, 1800s till now. It's crazy. So do you think at one point we are going to be affecting it as they say we are? We have, you know, what is it, 8 billion people in the world? That's going to double within like 20 years. Like,
right.
I think at some point we are going to be affecting it. I think right now we're not, as much as they want to say we are.
I agree.
So.
All right. And just my point to take away from this is, just as Robbie said earlier, don't be a sheep. Don't just believe anything that the government or NASA is going to tell you, because they have definitely a vested interest in misinformation and getting you to believe big lies so that they can manipulate you whenever they want. And my other takeaway is where this is going is you're not going to be able to own private property. You're not going to be able to own a car. I've heard that 3 different times now in some of the, we won't say what we do, but we have inside information on industry and stuff like that. I'll put it that way. No more owning a car. You're going to have to live in a city, and you're going to have to live in a little small apartment, and it'll be mainly a socialist type thing where you work, you work 20 hours a week, you get a little check from the government, you have a drone bring you your coffee, in the morning, and they just want nobody to have any kind of freedom, to the point where there is no more, hey, let's get in the fucking car and drive up to Flagstaff this weekend.
For the day, yeah, or something.
You won't be, the car that you have won't go there. You'll have to have a permit.
They do that in some Asian countries, right? It's so expensive just to have the license. Is like the license for just the car is $20,000.
Jesus.
And then you have to buy the car, and then you have to,
yeah,
pay a yearly permit fee for that.
Yeah, and I've seen the robot taxis. They don't look fun. So in other words,
I've been seeing those pop up too in Tempe, the Wayfair ones.
You've seen the Wayfair?
Oh, I saw them all over Tempe.
I'll fucking throw a Molotov cocktail into that thing. I'll make sure there's nobody in it first. But so they're utopian view is there's just going to be a bunch of robot cars driving around. You need a car, you grab one, you get in it, you go to the grocery store, it drives away, goes and picks somebody else up. When you come out of the grocery store, you grab another one, and it takes you home. You're going to have to put a destination into that thing. There's no, drive, go left here, go right there. You're going to have an address.
And they're going to know everywhere you're going.
For these things, for you to be able to use them. I liken it to the Johnny Cab in Total Recall, where he jumps in the cab and he's like, go, I'm being shot at. And he's like, what's your destination? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, though, might help people with, like, car accidents and stuff. Unless, there's also the problematics of hackers, though, too. Which we can go into that. Well, we can go into that a little bit with the Federal Reserve episode with hacking cars and stuff like that.
Cool. Well, I think it's been about an hour since we started. I think we made some.
Again, these are
points.
Again, this is just a little taste, just to direct you and where some of your research can land you. Some good starting points. We don't claim to be the experts. Or anything like that. This is just a conversation.
It's just reasonable doubt. I'm just giving you other evidence that you may have never seen before.
Yeah.
That totally contradicts the official story. So, all right.
All right. Well, from the Be Advised podcast, I'm Robbie.
And I'm Ron.
And
Noodles.
Don't be a sheep.
Don't be a sheep. And be advised.
Be advised.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Be advised,